You were never safe in her eyes. You mistook the gaze for love, but it was hunger. Her attention felt like salvation, but underneath it was the scent of blood. She doesn't want you whole. She wants you broken, drowned. Just enough to need her, but never enough to leave her. That's the part you couldn't admit. That you were seduced by the danger. You didn't fall in love. You fell under a spell. Jung called her the shadow of the Anima, the dark feminine. Not the nurturing mother, not the divine muse, but the devourer, the sorceress, the wound that walks. And she lives inside every woman. Yes, every woman, including the one who raised you, the one you chased, and the one you can't forget. This shadow isn't cruel because she hates you. She's cruel because she's starving, and she will feed on your need for her. The more you try to save her, the more you drown. And here's the truth. You don't want her to change. You want her to need you. You want to be the one who heals her, tames her, makes her love you more than her chaos. But the female shadow doesn't love you. She mirrors what you secretly believe you deserve, that you are unworthy, replaceable, a boy begging a goddess to see him. And the most haunting part, you worshipped her for it. This is not about her anymore. This is about the part of you that keeps choosing her, the part that confuses torment for intimacy. You're about to meet the woman you keep chasing. But first, you'll meet the ghost inside yourself. This is the part no one tells you. The Anima doesn't just seduce, she destroys. You didn't choose her. Not really. You were already shaped to find her. Molded by a childhood of reaching for love that never reached back. Sculpted by a mother who smiled but never truly saw you, who held you maybe, but not the real you, only the version that pleased her, the version that kept her calm. That made her feel needed. And so you learned, to be loved, you had to disappear. You became the mirror, quiet, observant, hyper-attuned. You read emotions before they were spoken. You felt storms before they broke. You became the emotional translator for women who couldn't hold their own wounds. So when you met her, the chaotic one, the beautiful one, the one who laughed like smoke and touched you like lightning, you didn't think, she'll hurt me. You thought, I know her, because you did. She carried the same hunger your mother did, the same need to be worshipped, feared, forgiven, the same emotional volatility disguised as depth. And you fell like a prayer into her fire. But it wasn't love, it was recognition. She didn't see you either. Not the you behind the eyes, not the boy who learned to bleed silently. She saw the function you could serve, the mirror, the audience, the savior. And you played the role perfectly. You let her rage, you absorbed the blame. You confused emotional chaos with passion, manipulation with mystery, emptiness with depth. Because somewhere deep inside, you believed that if you could finally win this woman's love, if you could be enough for her, then maybe, just maybe, it would mean you had finally become worthy. Jung wrote that the Anima, man's inner image of the feminine, emerges from his experience with his mother. If she is cold, the Anima becomes seductive and cruel. If she is overbearing, the Anima becomes needy and devouring. But either way, the man is haunted. He doesn't fall in love with women. He falls in love with his wound. You think you've chosen her freely. You haven't. You're repeating something, over and over again. This is the repetition compulsion Freud spoke of. The endless reenactment of early trauma, disguised as love. You chase her because she reflects your earliest pain. And you endure the suffering because some unconscious part of you still believes, if I can finally win her love, I'll rewrite the past. But you won't. She disappears when you get close. She punishes you when you show weakness. She withholds affection and then floods you with it when she senses you're slipping away. She knows how to keep you on the hook, just like your mother did. And here's the real tragedy. Every time you let her do it, you reinforce the lie that you are unlovable unless you suffer. You begin to normalize emotional violence. You call it chemistry. You romanticize the cycle. You blame yourself when she withdraws. You abandon yourself to keep her. And each time you lose a piece of yourself, you call it love. This isn't love. This is addiction. You crave her highs because your nervous system is wired for emotional unpredictability. You interpret calm as boring, Stability is lifeless. You've mistaken peace for emptiness, because all you've ever known is chaos. But the truth is even darker. You want the chaos. Because if she were kind, consistent, safe, you'd have nothing left to fix, no role to play, no dragon to slay. And that would mean facing the real void, the question of who you are without your wound. So you keep choosing her, the woman who pulls you in and spits you out, the one who stares at you like prey, the one who makes you feel alive because she keeps you terrified. She is not your soulmate. She is your shadow. And you, though you won't admit it, love the way she breaks you. Because every time she shatters you, she confirms the lie you've carried since childhood. You were never enough. That's the secret you've been hiding. Not from her, from yourself. You don't fear losing her. You fear what her absence would reveal, that you have no idea what love actually feels like, because all you've ever known is survival, and the shadow feeds on it. It didn't begin with her. It began long before you ever looked into her eyes, before the heartbreaks, before the longing, before the rage. It began in the quiet spaces of your childhood, the moments you now dismiss as normal, the way she sighed when you cried, the way her love felt conditional, the way you had to earn safety. You were taught to orbit around a woman's emotions, to regulate her moods, to feel secure. Your nervous system wired itself to the rhythm of someone else's volatility, and in that moment, something fractured. Your sense of self dissolved into a strategy. This is where the Anima was born, not as a lover, as a ghost, a haunting internal figure composed of everything you were never allowed to express. Your tenderness, your need, your rage, your fear, and everything you projected onto the women who came after. Carl Jung didn't describe the Anima as simply a feminine presence in the male psyche. He called her an autonomous complex, an independent psychic entity that influences your thoughts, desires, and choices, whether you recognize her or not. You think you're making rational decisions. You're not. The Anima pulls strings behind the curtain. She shows up in dreams, fantasies, obsessions. She is not the woman you're dating. She is what you see in her. And what you see is you. The parts you've disowned, the parts you've hidden, the parts you've chased in others, because you were never taught to hold them in yourself. You fall in love with her mystery because you've buried your own. You fall for her darkness because you've denied yours. You cling to her intensity because you're afraid of your own emotional truth. She becomes the portal through which your psyche tries to restore balance. But instead of integration, you create addiction. Instead of healing, you create obsession. You confuse possession with intimacy. Jung warned. Every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. This image is fundamentally unconscious, a hereditary factor of primordial origin. You don't love her. You love what she represents. And when she hurts you, withdraws from you, betrays you, it's not just rejection. It's a collapse of your inner structure. Because without her, you don't know where your value lives. You outsourced it. The world today accelerates this collapse. Capitalism feeds on emptiness. It offers dopamine hits in place of devotion. Social media sells sex and suffering as symbols of authenticity. Love becomes spectacle. Vulnerability becomes currency. You scroll through images of women posing as goddesses, witches, angels. You consume their chaos like it's sacred. But what you're really doing is projecting your anima onto pixels. You don't want them. You want what they awaken in you. The ache, the longing, the pain. Because pain, at least, feels real. And so the female shadow becomes your religion. You worship her mood swings. You romanticize her wounds. You tell yourself she's deep because she's unstable. You call her powerful because she controls your emotions. But this is not reverence. This is regression. You've returned to the archetypal mother, the chaotic feminine you never learned to survive without. You are a boy disguised as a man, begging for a woman to complete you. You tell yourself it's love. But what you want is to be consumed. Because in being consumed, you don't have to be responsible for yourself. You don't have to grow. You don't have to confront the terrifying question, who am I when I stop needing her? The truth is, The Anima was never meant to be worshipped. She was meant to be integrated. She is the invitation to reclaim the parts of you you've abandoned. Your softness, your sadness, your intuitive knowing, your soul. She is not the enemy. But the way you use her is. Jung taught that the Anima must be made conscious, that until you see her clearly, she will sabotage every relationship you enter, because you will not see your partner, you will see only your wound. You'll demand that she reflect your value. You'll beg her to give you what you refuse to give yourself, and when she can't, because no one can, you'll blame her, hate her, obsess over her, chase her, and repeat the cycle. Until you stop. Until you realize you're not chasing her. You're chasing yourself. The self you lost when you first learned that love was conditional. The self that knew how to be whole without being needed. The self you abandoned when you became the mirror. And here's the hardest truth. Healing doesn't feel like falling in love. It feels like loss. It feels like grieving the illusions, watching the fantasy die, standing in the silence where the obsession used to be. And in that silence, for the first time, you hear your own voice. It's been waiting. Would you rather stay wounded, if it means staying loved? Don't answer too quickly. Sit with the question. Let it tear you open. Because part of you already knows. The answer is yes. You've chosen the pain over and over again. You've chosen the chaos, the apology loops, the silences that scream louder than words. You've chosen to stay small, just to be held, to be tolerated, just to avoid being left. You don't want to lose her, even if she's destroying you, even if she reminds you more of your mother than your future, even if the voice inside you whispers, "This is killing me." You'd rather bleed than be abandoned. You'd rather die slowly than face the void of no longer being needed. So you keep playing the part, the fixer, the listener, the emotional sponge. You call it love, but it's martyrdom. And deep down, you know it. But here's the secret you can't admit out loud. The torment gives you purpose. If she stopped crying, stopped breaking, stopped collapsing into your arms like a storm into the sea, what would be left? Would you still matter? Would you still be worthy? You don't know. And so you cling to the very thing that's devouring you, because pain has become your proof of connection. If it hurts, it must be real. But that's not love. That's trauma speaking in tongues. You are not in a relationship. You are in a reenactment. You are not healing. You are recycling your past into a prettier package. You confuse feeling needed with being loved. You confuse being triggered with being alive. You confuse emotional hunger with depth. And here's the question that keeps circling you like a vulture. What would it mean to be free of her? What happens if you no longer orbit her pain? If you stop earning your worth through suffering? Who are you when you're not trying to save anyone? Would you still know how to exist? The truth is, she doesn't even see you anymore. She sees your need. She sees your worship. She sees your fear. And she feeds on it. That's the shadow of the feminine when it's unintegrated, seductive, manipulative, insatiable. Not because she's evil, but because she's starving too. Starving for power, control, validation. You think you're rescuing her, but what if she's rescuing herself by keeping you small? What if every time she cries and you run to her, it's not love, it's control? What if she subconsciously knows that as long as you're addicted to her chaos, you'll never leave? You think you're the hero, but what if you're the hostage? You think she's the victim, but what if she's the one with the power? And what if you like it that way? Because as long as she's broken, you never have to face your own emptiness. As long as she's the problem, you never have to ask why you chose her in the first place. You say you want peace, but you sabotage it. You say you want love, but you run from the ones who offer it without strings. You say you want depth, but what you really want is to be consumed. And here's the paradox Jung hinted at in his work on the Anima. The more unconscious she is, the more powerful she becomes. She will haunt your dreams. She will shape your fantasies. She will sabotage your choices. She will whisper lies in your ear and call it desire, until you confront her, until you look her dead in the eye and say, "You are not my mother. You are not my God. You are not my salvation. You are my shadow, and I see you now." Because once you see her clearly, she loses her grip. She no longer holds the key to your self-worth. She no longer gets to define your masculinity, your power, your value. But you must earn that clarity. You must walk through fire for it. You must stand in front of the mirror and ask the most brutal questions you've ever faced. What have I sacrificed for the illusion of being loved? What parts of myself have I disowned to keep her interested? Would I even recognize real love if it knocked on my door? Or would I call it boring, walk away, and chase the next ghost who reminds me of my mother's moods? This is not just about women. This is about you. Your anima is not a villain. She's a mirror. She reflects your unconscious beliefs, your deepest wounds, your buried truths. And until you stop projecting them onto women, you will keep suffering. You will keep calling dysfunction romance. You will keep losing yourself in the eyes of those who never truly see you. You will keep confusing survival with connection. But now you know. And knowing means choosing. Stay addicted to the ghost. Or start reclaiming your soul. The storm is inside you. The chaos was never hers. She only awakened what was already screaming in you. You stop running. Not because the pain disappears, but because you're finally willing to feel all of it. No more fixing, no more chasing, no more begging shadows to become real. You sit in the wreckage, in the silence, and for the first time, you don't reach for her. That's where power begins. Not in grand declarations or violent rejections, but in the stillness where the need used to be. You no longer need her to validate your worth. You no longer need her chaos to feel alive. You stop checking her moods like weather reports. You stop bending your truth to keep the peace. And what rises in that emptiness is not rage. It's clarity. You see now, she was never your salvation. She was the fire that burned your illusion of love to ash. She didn't break you. She revealed you. She forced you to confront the part of yourself that still believed suffering was romantic. But now, something ancient awakens in you. Something wild. Something untamed. The self before the wound. The boy who didn't yet believe love was something to be earned. He's still here. And he remembers. He remembers what it felt like to exist without orbiting someone else's emotions. To speak without apology. To feel without shame. To love without losing himself. This isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. The feminine still lives inside you. But she is no longer shadow. She is no longer the devourer. She is the source, intuition, depth, silence, fire. She no longer whispers lies in the voice of obsession. She speaks truth in the language of soul. You don't run from her anymore. You listen. You integrate. Because that's what Jung meant by individuation. Not perfection, not purity, but wholeness, owning every piece, light and dark, masculine and feminine, chaos and stillness. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You have made her conscious. The anima is no longer your mistress. She is your mirror. And now, you hold it. So when you meet her again, the one who reminds you of the past, you won't collapse. You won't chase. You won't try to save her. You will see her pain. You will feel her hunger. But you won't confuse it with love. Because love does not devour. Love witnesses. Love chooses. Love remains, without demanding that you vanish. And now, you remain. You don't soften your truth to be palatable. You don't dim your presence to feel accepted. You don't sacrifice your fire to be touched. You become untouchable. Not in your distance, but in your wholeness. The man who no longer needs is the man who is finally free. And that's what they'll fear. Not your strength, but your indifference. Because when you stop needing her to reflect your worth, you become something terrifying, unmirrorable. You walk through the world without flinching. You love with presence, not with desperation. You hold space, not because you're trying to be good, but because you already are. And now, you see her more clearly too. Not the illusion, the woman behind it. Maybe she is still lost. Maybe she is still ruled by her own shadow. Maybe she still manipulates, performs, punishes, but you don't react. You don't fix. You see. And because you see, you no longer betray yourself to stay. That is freedom. That is reclamation. You don't burn bridges. You don't wage war. You simply stop offering your soul as a sacrifice. You stand, silent, certain, alive. They won't recognize you when you stop needing them. Because the boy is gone, and in his place, a man has risen. You are not broken. You are becoming. This ache, the one you carried like a second skin, was never your curse. It was your compass. Every obsession, every collapse, every woman who left you gasping in her absence was a mirror, not of your weakness, but of your longing to return to yourself. You searched for her in their eyes, in their cruelty, in their chaos. You thought love meant suffering, that devotion required death. But all this time, you weren't seeking a woman. You were seeking the parts of you that had been buried beneath her shadow. The Anima is not your enemy. She was never here to destroy you, only to lead you into the underworld, into the cavern where your soul was chained, into the silence where your voice had vanished, and now you've retrieved it. You no longer beg. You no longer chase. You no longer disappear for a touch of warmth. You stand in your center, and everything changes. The ghosts lose their grip. The hunger fades. The mirror no longer defines you. You are no longer haunted. You are whole. There will be silence now, a stillness you once feared. The storm has passed. No more collapsing for connection. No more bleeding for belonging. You are not the echo of a woman's wound. You are not the boy at the altar of the feminine. You are the flame. The mirror cracks. The smoke clears. The illusion dies. And from the wreckage, you rise. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Jung said. And you have come. Welcome back. Now let them meet the version of you that doesn't need to be chosen. Let them face the man who chose himself.